Hold on tight. The champ is here. Mikey is raising the roof. He is loving it.
Let's be real for a second.
Let's be real. I'm excited to be real today. Mikey, we're now explain yourself.
I don't hate Russell Wilson.
Todd hates T.Y. Hilton. I know why he likes Nick Foles. Do you know why? Because he scored 55 points against them in the championship game last year.
Running backs in Andy Reid's systems, just fantasy gold mine. Sign me up there, man.
Yeah, and he's passing for 1,000 too, because his offensive weapons are shit.
Maybe. Oh my God, I can't even believe this, Eric. Todd comes out with some outlandish shit.
Come on.
But that one wins the night.
You deserve the torture of watching those games if you get them.
There's a problem with all those names. None of those guys are good.
Exactly, that's my point. That is 100% my point.
Hey. All I'm saying. Hey, I'm a very unique individual. You know, that's.
I'm sure all the owners think so.
Oh, man. Just when I think that they're out, they pull me back in.
It's July 4th, and the squad is here to put you in the best position to win that Mile High Affiliates Tiki Trophy. I'm Eric Lansing here along with the usual suspects, and Mikey Renault and Todd Diamond. Fellas, we just did a mock draft. You guys tired at all? Do you got the chutzpah? The chutzpah?
The chutzpah.
There you go. The Yiddish energy.
There you go.
How you guys feeling? You guys doing well?
Yeah.
Good. I just have the Mikey energy.
There you go.
Mikey energy?
Yeah.
Mikey energy's good. Where do you get your Mikey energy from? You didn't have any soda tonight. Is it from the cookies?
No soda. Might be the cookies.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Little sugar rush there.
That little elf. I mean, it's not M&Ms in there. It's crack cocaine, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. We're sniffing cookies here on the podcast. So let's see what's coming up on today's show. We always joke on the show about how terrible tight ends are, and we probably should just get rid of that position. But maybe we should just give you some good, sound advice to help you pick the best tight ends available, or should we just get rid of them altogether?
Makes it interesting to have a tight end because it gives you another dynamic, I think. So I'd keep them all.
I mean, there's always one that's going to be breakout, so nobody's going to figure out who it is. They just might as well get lucky.
And we're going to give you the best chance to get lucky here on the show, and not in the good way. So we'll talk about tight ends. We'll briefly talk about defenses. And as we mentioned, we did a mock draft just moments before this podcast. So we went through, drafted from a position. We all went in with certain plans and kind of talk all about it. So it'll be pretty cool to kind of see what our thoughts on our final teams based on the kind of plan and journey that we kind of set up for ourselves. All right, so before we get into our news and notes, you guys have done a couple of mock drafts. Who is there a guy that you've seen yourself draft more often than not that if you had on a couple teams, Todd?
Yes, Robert Woods.
Robert Woods, huh? You drafted him in this mock draft this evening.
Yes, I did.
What is it about Robert Woods?
I think it's the offense, the offense he's in, and then the fact that how much he stepped up. I mean, obviously Cooper Kupp was getting all the before that was getting all the receptions and so forth, but Robert Woods stepped up, and that was Jared Goff's go-to wide receiver in a lot of tight spots. Now, granted, he didn't get a lot of receptions per se, but he got enough where you could feel comfortable drafting him. Either pretty high or starting him, as maybe not as your number one, but your number two, and feeling like you can play him every single week and he gets you 10 to 12 points every week.
He was just on your team last year.
That's correct.
There you go. Mikey, what about you?
Oh, Larry Fitzgerald's been on every single team I've done.
Yeah, you've mentioned before in this podcast that you like you some Larry Fitzgerald. Which round have you been getting him? Do you kind of recall which rounds you've gotten him in?
So this last one we did, I got
you got him tonight, right?
I got him tonight in round 8. And it's been right around that range. 8 or 9 is right around where I've been getting him.
Now, does he end up being like your third or fourth receiver?
Yeah, actually, 4th is probably where he about lines up.
I think you got him, third.
Yeah, 3rd this time.
3rd this time over Sutton, who's another guy you really like. For me, and it's a guy I drafted also tonight, is Adrian Peterson. I don't think people are realizing that he's going to be a starting running back. I know a lot of people are kind of looking to Geis and Thompson, and as we all saw the news that Adrian Peterson is broke, is what the news is.
He's in financial trouble.
He might need to play well here in the next couple of years to keep playing because if you're broke at this point, something's wrong. All right, so let's get into some news and notes.
To me, the most amazing thing about the news is that whatever goes on in the world, it exactly fits the number of pages that they're using in the paper that day. Interesting concept. I mean, I don't know. They must stand around after each edition going, I don't believe we just made it again. Just, you know what I mean?
Just filled it up.
Yeah. If one more thing happens, we're screwed. There's no more room in this paper.
And we'll start off with the big news that's just shaking the fantasy world and just crazy rankings flying over the place. That's Tyreek Hill, who won't be suspended. Were you guys shocked to hear that?
I was a little bit shocked.
We're gonna get too much into the politics of it all, but I was surprised, I guess. But
Given his history,
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're saying no evidence, right? So
Precedent, I guess. If I just want to just say the politics, it's a bad precedent. But that doesn't have anything with fantasy football. You know, it's just more of the precedent, I think.
definitely surprising. So kind of
Yeah.
getting back to the fantasy, where do you guys have him? Where did you put him in your rankings, Mikey?
so he shot up for me. He went from, I think I had him 54th before, went up to 15th.
15th. That's not as high as I thought you would have him. So what are some guys you have around him then?
So I had Keenan Allen around him. I had Brandon Cooks around him. Guys like that.
Todd, what do you?
T.Y. Hilton.
T.Y. Hilton. Okay. Where did you?
I had him around like 23, 24 before, and then I think I had him shot up now to like 20, 19, 18 around that. And wide receivers I had around him were like Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, and so forth. So those were some of the wide receivers I had above Tyreek Hill.
Unbelievable. I have him 7th. 7th. You guys forget what he did last year?
Understand.
And he still has the great quarterback.
But I mean, but
Is Kareem Hunt going to make that much of a difference?
But the thing is, it's the suspension's definitely a big part in when you're trying to figure out if you're going to draft him because
He's not suspended.
I understand that, but I think that was when everything was still in limbo. Like you didn't know what was going on. Like if the NFL was gonna suspend him or kick him out of the league.
But he's not.
I understand.
He's going to play week 1.
But I understand. But now I've moved him. I moved him up.
You haven't moved him up as high as I think you should have him. Like, do we remember where he finished last year in our league?
Top 5.
4th. He finished 4th. Now, I know the numbers are going to regress. No one thinks that Patrick Mahomes are going to throw
Right.
for 50 touchdowns, but
Which is why, and
15th?
I only had him regressing a little bit. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. Where I think it's going to hit is touchdowns. That's always a statistic for me that it's hard to rely on, having the kind of touchdowns that he had year to year. So I have got that going down just a little bit. Still have him over 1,000 yards. Still have him just over 70 receptions. But I have him going down to 6 touchdowns.
well, that's half.
It's half.
That's half. That's a lot. That's a lot. So there's got to be something more than just regression
It's
for it to be
regression.
6. Are you guys concerned? I guess we could talk about this later as we go along, but are we concerned at all about him doing something else? Now, obviously, they didn't have enough evidence because he's had a history. If they had anything, they would have suspended him. But he's obviously a knucklehead and can give more options to do stupid things in the future.
I agree. It could definitely go. It could be another, Josh Gordon situation with Tyreek Hill, where you just don't know what's going to happen if if he slips up and does something stupid, and you've drafted him pretty high, and you don't have a really good backup, for Tyreek Hill, then what do you do there? So it's all it's all kind of fingers crossed. He just concentrates on the field and does his thing. So, but that's going more into politics. But that's
No, for me, it didn't play any part in it whatsoever. If it was drugs, it'd be one thing. But with this, no, I'm not worried about it. I think sometimes what I do is, especially in someone like his case, where I see him being drafted, is like I've seen some people taking him late first round, early second.
Yeah.
And based on where I'm drafting, I kind of know or have a good feeling that it's not going to fall into my range. So I almost purposely drop him just a tick and have guys rated above that I think are more likely I'm going to have.
So this is just all about Mikey.
Of course it is. What are we talking about right now?
We should change the name of the show.
let's talk about Mikey.
Talking with the tamales or
I
something.
don't intentionally try and do it. It's just more of a...
Interesting. I'm surprised. I mean, I understand that no one thinks that Patrick Mahomes is going to toss 50 touchdowns, but it's still a pretty potent offense. Anyway, one last thing I'll ask about it, because there's a lot of news and notes, is does this hurt or help Kelsey?
I don't think it makes
make a
one
difference?
difference one way or the
I mean,
other.
do you think that Kelsey would have had a better season with Tyreek Hill not there? So now that he's there, his numbers go down a little bit?
I think
And we'll talk about
that's
Kelsey,
tough.
too.
That's tough. Like, I almost think he would get more targets, but I don't know that he would necessarily have a better season because double teams would be shifted his way. And so things
What,
wouldn't.
they're not going to double team Sammy Watkins?
No. Things wouldn't be as easy for him, I guess.
Sure.
So with Hill there, I think for him it's better because he has the capability of getting more big plays, more touchdowns, stuff like that.
Cool. So Tyreek Hill talk. Interesting. Probably going to go in the first 2 rounds. If anything, if you don't like Tyreek Hill, it moves everyone else over a little bit. So it definitely makes that more interesting. Okay. A lot of holdouts. Ezekiel Elliott, not in California yet. Still has time to get there. Melvin Gordon, talking about holding out, and it looks like he is going to. And it sounds like the Chargers are going to stay firm and not pay him what he wants. And Michael Thomas, who I read not too long ago, is possibly holding out. Are we concerned at this point of the season of these holdouts? Are we dropping guys in our rankings at all?
Michael Thomas, I'm not worried about. The Saints are going to pay him. I'd still draft Michael Thomas pretty high. Melvin Gordon's an interesting one because, Melvin Gordon has only played one season, all 16 games, and before that he was pretty much, just invisible. Like, I mean, just couldn't. There was his first season couldn't even get on the field. So he's definitely banking on what he did last year, and wants his money. But if he's willing, if he's really making a stand like Le'Veon Bell, then I would want to take that chance on that, especially if he was my first pick. Because if he's really firm to the ground saying, "Hey, pay me or I'm not showing up," sorry, I'll draft a rookie that I know it's going to be there. So that's what I got.
Well, you're going to draft a rookie.
I draft a rookie quarterback.
You're talking about in your draft, instead of drafting Melvin Gordon, you're going to go draft a rookie?
If he doesn't show up.
I think that's how this works. You're going to draft the next best running back on your list, right?
Yeah, but I was just using the prime example. A running back, I know it's going to be there. That's what I'm.
There you go.
So I might say.
Mikey, did you move any of these guys down your rankings based on this? Thomas, Zeke, or Melvin Gordon?
The one guy just a little would be Gordon. He's the guy I'm most concerned about because he's actually already holding out. Thomas, I think it's more of a training camp thing. Elliott, we'll see how that plays out. But Gordon is kind of it's so weird. I think he's in a position where, like, I don't think he actually wants to hold out, but he almost feels like he has to. Just kind of a dangerous situation.
Is that because Zeke is right behind him? Maybe pushing him a little pressure, knowing that the running backs behind him are also kind of vying?
Like if I was Gordon, I feel like I have to get mine now. I mean, he's already a guy that, gets dinged up here and there.
Yeah.
And somebody like that, you got to get paid now before it's too late. Zeke, he's still got some time.
For sure.
Unless he gets arrested again.
You hope not. I moved Melvin Gordon actually from my 6th running back to 14th. So, I mean, it could change, but, I mean, there's already so many question marks with him. I just kind of don't even want to have to worry about it, honestly. There's so many question marks with him, and he's always injured at the end of the season. Eckler's right there, too. But it would definitely shoot Eckler up my rankings for sure if something happens. Okay, we're going to keep moving with our news and notes, and we don't have to talk about every single one of them, but just some thoughts just for you owners to be aware of. Julian Edelman out 3 weeks with a thumb injury. Should be back soon, but there's one of those guys that is always injured and always dinged up, so that's something to keep an eye on. DeAndre Hopkins dealing with an ankle issue and shoulder. Sony Michel dealing with a knee. They're both on active PUP lists. That's not the same as the in-season PUP list, but that's just something to keep an eye on. Darren Sproles signs a 1-year contract with the Eagles. Anybody excited? Didn't get drafted in the mock draft, so
chalk one up for the little guy.
Yes.
Very good.
He must have something on the owner because he is just can't.
He's a likable guy.
Sure, yeah. And
Brings-
I guess
brings-
if you don't have one running back, you might as well get them all.
Brings leadership to that room. There's
Sure.
some value there. Not in fantasy, but there's some value.
Chris Herndon suspended 4 games. Speaking of not very good leaders, pleaded guilty to a DUI. He'll actually kind of be a 5-week deal since week 5 is their bye week. So week 6, if you're interested in Chris Herndon, you could probably not draft him and maybe pick him up before the bye week. Let's see. I'm going to skip some of these. Richie Incognito suspended 2 games. Go figure that.
What a shocker.
Watch out.
Hard Knocks.
Josh Jacobs, yeah. Mikey's guy, Delaney Walker, dealing with an ankle injury, so they might be ready for week 1. He is 35 years old.
Why is he my guy?
You've talked about it, liking him. You've drafted him last year. It's your guy. You've had him a couple times on your team.
It's tight ends. It's the best of the shit.
It's your guy.
So there you go. All right, here's one that might be fantasy worthy, although he didn't get picked up in our draft, this mock draft today. Lance Kendricks is now a Patriot. Anybody excited for that? Former Ram. Peanut Gallery doesn't look excited.
I mean,
where's that Mikey
I mean,
energy at?
they're just waiting. They're just waiting for Gronk to come back. That's all.
That's my energy for Lance Kendricks. I'm
Kendricks
sorry.
with the Rams last year played in 16 games, had 3 starts, 19 receptions, 170 yards, and 25 targets. So he joins Ben Watson, Andrew Beck, and Jacob Johnson as the other tight ends. Julio Jones had, of course, off-season foot surgery, hoping to step on the field in about 10 days from now, you hope. Titans O-line, Taylor Lewan, 4-game suspension. So I might have to move Derrick Henry in my rankings, move it down a little bit.
If you already hadn't after listening to the Running Back podcast.
That's right. Well, I mean, for me. I'm going to move him down. We talked about Adrian Peterson being broke. Okay, so let's get into some tight end talk.
Yeah.
And let's be serious about this.
Okay.
All right, Mike, I'm going to ask you this. Where will the tight ends go? Where will they go? Not based on what we think. Where will they go, and should they get drafted there?
Well,
Where are they going?
Kelsey's going in round 2.
And some in the first round.
I don't think any are going to go in the first
You
round.
don't think anybody in our league is going to do that?
No.
Okay, so you think he's going to go in the early second round?
Early second round.
Where does Ertz go? Because we know who the top 3 are. It's Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, and George Kittle. So
Right.
where are they going?
I think it's hard to say. I think one of the other 2 is going in the second round too.
Okay.
I think 2 of them are going in the second round. One of them is going in the third.
Should they get drafted there?
Yes.
Really? Wow. Okay. Tell me why. I'd love to hear this.
It's the scarcity of the position. So I mean I understand it. It's hard not to do it. When they scored as many points as they did last year, and there's garbage behind it, it's an advantage for a team to do it. Me personally, I don't know if I would, but I can say I understand it. I understand it, and it's probably what's going to happen.
What do you think, Todd? Should they be going in the first couple rounds, maybe 3rd or 4th for Kittle?
3rd round for Kelsey, 4th round for Kittle, and I think 5th round for Ertz.
Never going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't let Ertz go to the 5th round. But do you think they should go that high?
I don't think they should go as high as Mikey's saying that they're going. Like second or 3rd round for a tight end. I know our owner, like everybody else in this league, it's you never know. Our league is very unpredictable to the fullest, and obviously our league's probably not the only one that happens to, but I've seen enough where you never know what's going to happen. But there's no Gronk. I mean, I think that was such a huge factor for so many years in fantasy football that people would draft Gronk obviously in the first round. I mean, there was years he'd go in the first round.
And how many times did he burn people? Quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Wait a
bit.
minute. There's a difference in that. Gronk burned people more because of injury. I don't think that Kelsey's ever had those problems before.
Sure. But, I mean, it's a position where if you are burned, you're almost screwed. I mean, you're giving up. I mean, with running backs and top-end wide receivers, they're going to get you somewhere between 220 and 280, maybe 300, depending.
But Kelsey is a top level wide receiver.
I think
isn't
he got 220. And I'm looking it up right now. But, so he ended up having 220 points, which is still a lot.
It's
But-
second round worthy.
But that's only
At the
that's
top
only
of the second round, like you're taking him over guys like James Conner and Odell Beckham. I don't know if I'm willing to reach that high. Now, let me ask you this, Mikey. You have a late second round pick and an early third round pick. And in this mock draft, you took Nick Chubb in the second round, and you took Damian Williams in the third. Are you taking Ertz over either one of those guys?
No.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the idea. And why is that? Why would you not take Ertz, who's a guy who last year in our scoring system had 214 points, and not take him over guys like Chubb and Williams? Because it's scarcity, right?
It is. But if you said, would you take Kelsey there, then I'd consider it.
Well, Kelsey, we don't think that Kelsey's going to reach that far, but it's only a difference of 6 points, 1 touchdown. Obviously, your ceiling for Kelsey is higher than Ertz.
Yes.
But, I mean, if you're talking about, now here's how it kind of, Kelsey 220 was first in our league. Zach Ertz was second with 214 points. George Kittle 182. So there's a drop off from there. And then after that, it's Eric Ebron, who obviously had a ridiculous touchdown total of 14, had 180 points. And then after that, it's Jared Cook with 143. So it's a big difference. So you wouldn't take Ertz over those other guys.
No, but it's so much because I love Damian Williams so much.
But that's the idea. That's the point we're trying to make, is that you have these guys. So let's say you're at the beginning of the second round. Is it going to be Odell Beckham or Travis Kelce?
That's a great question.
See, and
But at least I'm thinking about it.
Sure, but that's what we're trying to convey to our audience. Is it the right thing to do to draft Kelce at the beginning of the second round? And I don't think it is. There's too much. It's volatile. The position is very volatile. Those guys are bigger guys. They're running in the middle of the field where more injuries take place. And I mean, with Kelce, I don't know. I mean, these guys have decent. We'll talk about Kittle as we go along because, and maybe I'll talk about him now in terms of his quarterback situation. I mean, you got to like the Kelce situation. He's got Patrick Mahomes. He's got the Andy Reid. He's got the offense back. We said that Tyreek Hill helps him being on the field. Ertz, probably the best receiver on the team, as long as Wentz stays healthy, because they don't have Nick Foles to kind of back him up. But in terms of having that running back, having that top-notch wide receiver,
But see,
it goes a long way.
I think there's just more receiver value there than I think people think.
Okay, but not a running back.
No,
Okay,
that's the difference.
that's the difference. So if it was wide receiver that you needed, you may take Ertz over a wide receiver.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'll throw this question at both of you as I get my wide receiver rankings. You'll tell me who you'd rather take amongst these guys, okay? And kind of based on where they're going in the draft. So, would you rather have Keenan Allen or Zach Ertz?
Zach Ertz.
I'm going to take Keenan Allen.
Okay. How about Amari Cooper or Zach Ertz?
Cooper.
I'm taking Zach Ertz.
Okay. Is that just because kind of the Dallas situation or?
Well, I'm going to believe in my history on this one. I saw Cooper really break out at the end of the season, but I've also seen Cooper's beginning part of his career. So I'm weighing history versus whatever that is, 7 to 8 game sample size. And I'm taking the more consistent option in Ertz.
Okay. I'll do one more. Trying to find one I know Mikey might like. Should I go up or down? I'll just throw out A.J. Green or Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I knew Mikey was going to say that.
Injuries, that's why.
Yeah. Zach Ertz. I mean,
Okay.
it depends on where AJ Green would fall.
Beginning of third round. I mean, you won't have that option because you are near the end of the first.
Yeah, probably Ertz.
Okay. So interesting. It's all up to personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a right answer?
No.
Probably not.
Yes.
It's the Mikey way.
Of course
Mikey
there-
way or the highway.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. We agree. Do we all have Travis Kelce as our number one? Is that for sure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think that was going to be too much of a question. Zach Ertz, 116 receptions last year. Does he get there again?
No.
Like he broke the record, and it's hard to do that 2 years in a row.
No, he doesn't get there.
Okay.
No.
No, not feeling it. Let's talk a little in depth about George Kittle. He burst on the scene in 2018. I've seen him go anywhere from the 3rd round to the 5th round, and really anywhere in between. Last year had 136 targets, 88 receptions, close to 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns. Seems a lot of low, but he definitely made his money on his yardage. 182 points. How are you guys feeling about George Kittle this season? Todd, you want to go first?
Yeah. I definitely like George Kittle. I have him ranked 2nd behind Kelsey.
Really, you have him over Ertz.
I
Well,
have
there you
him-
go. I should have asked that question
Yeah,
first.
That's okay.
So you go ahead. Finish.
Yeah,
I'll
so-
ask you about your
yeah.
draft placement later.
So the reason I have him 2nd overall is just because of the fact, he went through 2 different quarterbacks, and he still produced. Obviously, in that Kyle Shanahan offense, definitely helps him a lot. And the thing too is the weapons they have in for the 49ers don't really jump off the pages very much. And George Kittle can definitely be a tight end, and you can get him out on the outside as a wide receiver. So I think that just helps utilize him even more as a wide receiver. Now, now a full season. Hopefully, Jimmy G, as he's called, will stay healthy. So that's why I think Kittle will definitely is definitely the 2nd best tight end in fantasy football.
Mikey, before I ask you about George Kittle, do you have George Kittle ranked over Ertz?
No.
Okay. So what do you think about Kittle? I mean, he's in his 3rd year. There's no typical breakout for tight ends, but it's definitely a breakout from a guy who the previous year played in 15 games, started 7, 63 targets, 43 receptions, a little over 500 yards and 2 touchdowns. Was last year a fluke? Do you believe in him?
I don't want to say the word fluke because that sounds so negative, but I don't.
Can he do it again? Do you prefer that? It's a little more positive.
I think that depends on what happens with the team. I think there's some flukiness to it, to his amount of targets and such. The 49ers, because of how injured they were a team that was behind a lot, that was forced to throw, that had pretty much most of their receiving options in and out of the lineup. Most of their running backs were in and out of the lineup. So he was like the only option. And so part of me feels like if everything's healthy, if Jimmy G plays the full season, if their running backs are relatively healthy with Tevin Coleman coming in and Breida and McKinnon coming back, and then them getting Deebo Samuel and Goodwin being healthy and Pettis coming into his 2nd year, that maybe they're going to play in more competitive games, and he's not necessarily going to get the amount of targets and volume he was getting.
When last year, his 2 quarterbacks were Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard.
Gross.
And this is a very small sample size. He played 3 games with Garoppolo. He averaged 6 targets per game, 4 receptions per game, and 63 receiving yards per game. So not anything off the page, but I still don't think. I think 3 is a good spot for him. His upside is he was a 5th round pick, so he doesn't have like the pedigree of some of these other guys, but I think he's a guy that's going to be 3rd, and he'll probably go to the 3rd round. So that takes me back to Todd. At the end of the 3rd round, if he's sitting there, are you interested at all?
I would definitely have to think about it. If we had a draft clock, I would definitely would have to go through the whole 5 or 10 minutes of the clock to think about that, because the points he did put up last year and just the impact that he had on the team last year, because I know projections. I know y'all love projections. I have him 1390 yards, 100 receptions, and 12 touchdowns.
Wow.
So obviously,
You better pick him in the
Yes,
in that third round if he's going to put up those numbers. Just some of the things that I'm looking at, Kiddo, we'll probably move on. Some of the things that jump out at me, he averaged close to 16 yards per reception. That's a ridiculous number. 140. He had games of 149 yards, 210 yards. We obviously know who that was against. 108 yards, 125 yards. He's an athlete. If Garoppolo can get him the ball, we'll see how it kind of plays out. Okay, so we talked about our top three. I'm sure, I don't know, I'm going to guess our number 4 is not the same. But who is your number 4 overall tight end? Because I think that's the most kind of debated amongst all the tight end questions.
I like Vance McDonald.
Oh, my goodness. Holy cow.
Okay.
All right. Todd, get to tell me yours real quick, and we'll go back to Mike.
Evan Ingram.
Okay. Vance McDonald.
I like Vance McDonald.
Oh, McDonald had a farm, and he
I would love to hear your explanation
Look,
for Vance
I'm
McDonald.
a sucker for teams that score. Pittsburgh also lost Antonio Brown. They lost Jesse James. I just think that, and Big Ben's always been a guy that loves his tight ends. You guys remember what Heath Miller used to do back in the day?
Back in the day.
Yeah. Vance McDonald is a...
Can we talk about the last couple of years?
We can talk about the last couple of years if you want to.
So in 2017, Jesse James led the tight ends with 63 targets. And then, but the year before that, 60 targets by Jesse James. The year before that, Heath Miller had 81 targets, 2 touchdowns. The year before that, in 2014, it was Miller again, 91 targets, 1 touchdown.
You have to understand what they're losing. How many targets are being opened up by the loss of Antonio Brown?
207. Well, yeah, I think it's 207.
Yeah, that is a whole hell of a lot. I am telling you, there's somebody in that is going to break out, and I have a feeling that guy is going to be Vance McDonald.
You're feeling.
I'm feeling.
You're feeling.
I am feeling.
Moves them all the way up to 4th?
Is that?
You have to understand, when you get past that top 3, all of the options are just kind of blah. So if I'm drafting, I'm taking a swing at a guy that I think has the type of upside that can hopefully win me the league.
So you're just trying to find the best blah, basically.
Yeah, you're trying to make the best out of a bad situation.
All right.
Okay?
You're trying to
You're
find
looking for upside is what you're looking for.
I agree.
Like, what is there consistent as far as tight ends when it comes to after those 3 guys? There's not. You're just taking.
I think
you're
there's
throwing darts.
I think there's better tight ends in terms of just athletes and guys that can catch the ball.
Oh, you're
I don't think he's that good of a player.
Great. You can give me Evan Ingram because he's got Eli Manning and then a rookie quarterback coming in after him. I'm going to trust that situation when 80% of his targets are going to Saquon Barkley. No thanks.
There's a lot of targets open over there, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah, and he's going to be able to get him, too, when he's flat on his back.
Especially afternoons if Sterling Shepard's going to be out for a while.
Yeah, see? Open some targets, see? Yeah, okay.
All right, so interesting.
All
Todd, you said Evan Ingram. Do you want to state your case for him being your number 4?
Just the fact, the lack of the weapons now in New York, and obviously with Sterling Shepard's injury, so that definitely opens the door a little bit. And Evan Ingram, again, is one of those tight ends that you can put out on the outside like a wide receiver. So very versatile, versatile tight end. Now, obviously, I know the Mikey. I know the Eli Manning factor. I know that is a very scary and horrifying factor because Eli is on the decline. But Evan Ingram was getting the ball, he was very effective. So. That's again. That's back to your point of throwing darts at
It's what it is. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because it's just like pick one, anyone. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you the one that I picked. And It's
Okay.
not either one of them. I picked O.J. Howard,
O.J. Howard. Okay.
who got that first round pedigree. He has 11 touchdowns on 87 targets. It's a huge touchdown rate on an offense that's gonna throw. He does have Cameron Brate, but I think they know they have the better option in him, and he should be the first tight end option. The thing that scares me a little bit is Arians hadn't had very good tight ends in his time with Arizona. If you're ready for a disgusting list, Jermaine Gresham, who had all right years, but he was never great. David Fells, John Carlson, and how about Robert Hausler?
Ooh, House. Oh, I haven't heard. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, say that name again.
So there you go for that. But he has an excellent catch rate. He has close to 17 yards per catch. He's an athlete. I don't think he's going to kill anybody in receptions, but I think he's a touchdown guy, and that's why I'm going with O.J. Howard.
And I can respect that. You're throwing your dart.
I like to think that's a little more than just throwing a dart. There's reasons, right? Where Vance McDonald has opportunity, and that's the only reason.
But-
It's reasonable. Any of the three of us can be right on this
right.
for
All
different reasons.
So
we'll mud wrestle for it later.
And it wouldn't matter which of these tight ends outside of the top three. So like Jared Cook, even though he's attached to Drew Brees, you still that's still just throwing darts at
He's another one.
All right.
But Todd,
I don't even consider him a dart thrower.
I can't believe that Todd chose Evan Ingram when I saw one of his other projections for another guy we'll talk about in a sec.
Okay. Well, I hope I don't know if it's Eric Ebron, but that's who I have next on my list. Okay. So Eric Ebron obviously caught 13 touchdowns. He ran for a touchdown. He's attached to Mikey's favorite quarterback. Jack Doyle is there. But what are you guys' thoughts on Eric Ebron?
I'm going to sit this one out for now. Let Todd go first because you got to listen to his projection, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Okay.
Let's hear the projections.
All right. Well,
Give me a drum roll, please.
900 yards receiving, 80 receptions, and 18 touchdowns.
Holy cow! And what rank do you have him at?
8.
8th? Wow. Talk about dart throw. You draft anybody, they're going to
I'll
give
take
you
him
top.
first round for 18 touchdowns.
18 touchdowns? Well, tell us why you think Ebron will get 18 touchdowns.
Again, I think he's just another year in the system with Andrew Luck. Obviously, besides T.Y. Hilton, they have a bunch of rookie wide receivers. Devin Funches, I'm not holding my breath on that. Very much. He's coming over from Carolina, but not holding. And he showed something, and I think he's gonna break out. Now, yes, I have him at 8, and I have 18 touchdowns, and he should be ranked higher than that. Again, just because where I have a player ranked just because I have him ranked 8th and I have him getting 18 touchdowns, so I have him at 8. That just means he's gonna exceed his preseason ranking that I have him for, and then I'm gonna look like a genius. So there you go. That's all I got to say about that.
Mike, what do you think about Todd being a genius? I mean, Eric Ebron. What do you think about Eric Ebron?
I think this is just completely reliant on Jack Doyle. I mean, they like playing two tight ends anyway, but Ebron didn't take off until Doyle got hurt, and then they were just playing the one tight end with 3 receivers. So I think his statistics are directly are going to be changed depending on whether Jack Doyle can stay healthy.
Jack Doyle played 6 games last year.
Not good.
And here's what Ebron did when Doyle started. In week 2, he had 4 targets, 3 receptions, 26 yards, and a touchdown. Week 8, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 37 yards, a touchdown. Week 9, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 69 yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 10, he only played 25 snaps. I think he got injured. I couldn't figure out what it was, but he didn't have any targets because he only played 25 snaps. Week 11, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 45 yards, 2 touchdowns. And in the final game, okay, so that was the final 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I maybe got something cut off here, but in essence, it's relatively the same. 3 catches, around 50 yards, and a touchdown. So he did okay with Doyle. My big thing with Doyle is that even if he gets 5 less touchdowns, which was 8 touchdowns, he would have been the number 4 tight end. So I still think, and I like Funchess. I mean, he's fine. Paris Campbell's there. There's a lot of weapons that are going to take looks away from him. Jack Doyle is like a better receptions tight end than Eric Ebron. But if Eric Ebron could get 8 to 10 touchdowns, I think I still rank him 4th. I don't know about 18, but Todd Diamond.
Yeah.
All right, and I asked you guys to give me a tight end that was outside of your top 10 rankings of tight ends, and that could surprise folks. Did you guys come up with one?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mikey.
This is going to sound funny, but
Funnier than Vance McDonald?
Old McDonald had a farm.
I think Mikey's living on a farm somewhere.
He's living on Vance McDonald's farm.
I actually like Cameron Brate.
Get out of here. I didn't even have him ranked. But, yeah, I guess go ahead. Cameron Braid, huh?
Yeah, and I know you like O.J. Howard a lot, but, I mean, he got hurt last year. That's one of the things. But
Sure.
but Arians also likes to use 2 tight ends. So I think they're both going to be on the field. When you're looking for a tight end, especially, in the late rounds, I'm going to take a guy in an offense that likes to pass in the red zone and somebody I think that may be able to get touchdowns. I feel like Cameron Braid is a guy that could go undrafted that maybe you could pick up late just kind of sneakily that could be a guy that maybe gets you 6 or 7 touchdowns.
Braid does have 23 touchdowns in 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So there you go. Todd?
Eric Ebron. That was my.
That was a guy that you had ranked outside of your top 10.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wanted someone that was outside your top 10 that could jump into the top 10.
Sorry. I would. You know what? I'm gonna go with a rookie. I'm gonna go with a rookie, and I'm gonna go with Noah Fant. I think obviously Joe Flacco definitely some of his best years was throwing to his tight end, and obviously I think the hype around Noah Fant I think definitely is gonna help, and I think he might surprise a lot of people. I have him ranked number 17th in my rankings. So I think obviously it depends on how our offense is, but I think he definitely will open the field a little bit more. Obviously, I know the Broncos have 4 tight ends on the roster, and Eric, you always say if you have 4 tight ends, you don't have any. But I think Noah Fant will kind of emerge after this preseason as the number 1 guy, and I think Joe Flacco's not just his safety blanket, but probably get a lot of targets. So that's where I think I have Noah Fant.
Should I be humbled that Todd is quoting me, or am I going to worry that he's going to butcher it so bad that people aren't going to understand what he's saying, but he's going to say it's me anyway? See what I'm saying? Like, what is that quote? Yeah, Eric told me. That's dumb. I don't need you ruining my quotes.
But that's a true statement, though.
That is a true statement. Okay.
That is a true statement.
A guy that I had ranked 16, and I don't know if Mikey will giggle at me or not, but I thought Greg Olsen could be a guy that jumps into the top 10. I know he's been injury prone. He ruptured his plantar fascia. He's missed 16 games the last 2 years. But the thing that kind of intrigued me when I was looking over these guys is that he was pretty effective when he was playing. He had 4 touchdowns in a 5-game stretch last year. He was averaging 7 targets. He had 7 targets, 6 receptions, and 76 yards. That's not bad.
Yeah, I'm not going to giggle at that. I mean, when he does play, that's the caveat.
Yeah, that's the caveat.
Play.
So if there's a guy outside that could, if he stays healthy, I mean, his numbers, catch rate, his yards per catch are still pretty good. That was just a guy that actually moved up my rankings after looking like he was actually pretty good when he played in there.
Jason Witten's another one of those guys. You don't know what he.
I didn't rank Jason Witten. I mean, that's just because I didn't get to it, but that's interesting. That's Jason Witten. Okay, so let's talk about defenses, and we're gonna do this fairly quickly. But when should the first defenses be taken?
Second to last round.
Yeah, about 14.
Don't lie.
15.
You took him in the 3rd to last round in the mock draft.
All right. Well, 3rd, 4th, whatever the. Hey, it's again. I'm quoting Mikey again. It's letting the draft come to you, and if for whatever reason a defense is there for you, then you pick it. But
Hey, I found some MHA trivia.
awesome.
You guys want to do some trivia?
Sure.
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer. It's a deal.
Let's name the top 5 defenses from last year in our scoring system. Mikey, we'll start with you. Give me one in the top 5.
I'll take the Bears.
They actually finished number 1. Todd,
Rams.
that is number 2. So we're off to a very good start. Mikey, back to you.
That's all I know.
Well, you got to give me some guesses here.
Okay, so I will go with.
Maybe you do it based on where your rankings are.
No, because I got some surprises
Do you?
there.
Okay.
Oh, I'll go with the Patriots.
And incorrect. I don't have them in the top 5. Todd?
Chargers.
And incorrect. I'll give you guys one more chance. If you don't name anybody, then we're going to end the game and you guys suck.
That's not.
That's not very
Is that
nice.
nice? Okay.
That's not nice.
Give me another
I'm
defense.
gonna go with the Chiefs.
That is correct. They finished 4th last year. Todd,
Jags.
that is incorrect. They were terrible last year. Mikey, if you get this one, you win the game.
I already win the game. I got one more than him.
But you could get it wrong, and he can get the next one. There's still 2 left.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go with the Saints.
That is incorrect. Todd,
Vikings.
incorrect. One more chance.
Seattle.
Incorrect.
For the win. For the win.
This is not for the win. This is for a tie.
Okay.
But if you get it wrong, I win, and you guys suck. Yeah, Mike.
Colts.
Incorrect.
Say the Ravens.
That is correct. Ravens were 5th. Texans were 3rd. And so just a quick look back at 2017. Anybody want to guess who the number 1 is? That's the only one I'm going to ask you.
Jacksonville.
That's right. Jacksonville, Baltimore, Rams, Lions, and Eagles. There's no rhyme or reason, folks, is what we're trying to say.
But the concept, the theme of all these defenses is they were all picked up off the waiver wire.
Probably not all of them, but the Bears were. The
Bears
Bears were picked up off the
well,
waiver wire.
The
Maybe KC would have been off the waiver wire. But I bet you everyone else of those were drafted.
but I guess maybe this is going back, but like most of the top defenses that finished first in our league were, I think, was it the Jags one year, Mikey? With that, you pick them off the waiver wire and they finished first in the league. So that just goes back to the point. Don't
Stop drafting him early. Stop it.
Yeah,
Knock
stop
it off.
knock it off.
Stop it. So,
Okay.
continuing with defense, which defense should be taken first?
I have the Bears first, but because obviously the architect is gone. The help in Fangio, but he's here in Denver.
But that still should make them number 1.
I mean, they still have Khalil Mack.
You're just saying that because they were on your team.
Well, but I'm just saying they
Todd
still
loyal
have
to
Khalil
his
Mack. I mean,
Look, but
The Raiders had him 2
Look.
years ago, and they didn't finish in the top 5.
here's the way you do this.
well, because the rest of their defense sucked. At least,
It's not going to be the same one.
okay.
It usually never is. What happens is normally it's one of these kind of teams that's kind of up and coming, I guess, ish. It's usually a team that plays a last place schedule because they're the ones that are going to get these shit quarterbacks that are going to be throwing these pick sixes at them.
So who is that?
I have Jacksonville.
No kidding.
They went from first to worst. So now when they had the number 1 defense the year prior, they had a good defense playing on a last place schedule. They have that once again.
Going right back to him. That's not bad. I like the thought process in that. That's very cool. I said Bears, but I also said watch out for Minnesota. We saw they had a lot of injuries. I think they play in a tough division, but I like them. Okay, any sleeper defenses? Anybody do that homework? I asked them to bring me a sleeper defense.
Denver.
Colts.
Why Denver?
Fangio coming in. I really like that. While I am worried about their linebackers just a little bit, I think that the system he brings in is going to be one that they're going to really get after the ball and try and turn them over. Love the defense.
Okay, Colts. Why do you like the Colts?
Because they're rookie of the year and Darius Leonard. Obviously had 124 tackles. And I like their secondary. I like their secondary a little bit as well. But I think they're a little bit of a sleeper. They're a little sleeper team, sleeper defense.
Okay, my sleeper defense was different, which is good. I picked the Steelers. They've led the league in sacks the last 2 years. T.J. Watt's obviously incredible. Cameron Hayward. The pass defense obviously has been the biggest problem, but they signed Steven Nelson from Kansas City. Joe Hayden's healthy; they'll be fine. And they traded up to get Devin Bush. So I think they're a defense, and I actually drafted them in our mock draft. Anything else anybody want to say about defenses before we move on?
Nope.
Okay, so we're about an hour in, and we're going to talk about a mock draft that we did on ESPN. It was a PPR. We all drafted pretty much where we're going to be in the draft. I'm going to be 7th. Mikey's 4th. We couldn't find one where Todd was at 11th, so we put him at 10th, so really close. The main thing is we all went in with an idea and a plan, something that maybe we wouldn't do or something we wanted to test to see what it looked like. So, for example, Todd drafted a tight end in the first round, and we'll look at his team, and we'll see if he likes it, if it's a good idea, or if it's something you should stay away from. For Mikey, a guy who loves to wait on quarterbacks, notorious for drafting one of the last ones, he drafted a quarterback very early in this draft. and we'll see if he liked what came out of it. And for me, I went 3 straight rounds, first, second, and third rounds, drafting running backs, filling up wide receivers later, and I'll tell you if I like that or not. Okay, so we're going to go kind of through this first round. We're not going to talk about every pick, but I'll kind of go through. So in this PPR, we drafted with a bunch of randos online. So Barkley, McCaffrey, Kamara, no surprise there. And then it was Mikey. He went with Ezekiel Elliott. That's not really a surprise, but Mikey, you must have loved that. That's your number 1 running back, right?
Yes, sirree, Bob.
So he was thrilled about that. After that was Le'Veon Bell, which seems high to me, but if you like Le'Veon, there you go. David Johnson right behind him at 6. And then it was my pick, and I needed to go running back, and he was the next guy. As I mentioned early on the broadcast, I probably would have had Melvin Gordon there, but after all this news, I decided to go with James Conner. I'm pretty thrilled with that pick. I like what he brings to the table and catches passes, and the opportunity for him to even be better. Melvin Gordon then did go number 8, Devontae Adams. And for Todd, I almost messed up because the guy he picked is Todd Gurley. So your thoughts there, you could have went tight end there. You could have went Kelsey. No one would have thought anything of it. That's kind of the plan you're going at. But you decided to wait. Talk about taking Todd Gurley there, a guy that's pretty questionable in a lot of people's minds and are pretty freaked out about what he's going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, any other year, Todd Gurley probably would have already been gone before he even got to me. But obviously, yes, with all the question marks that surrounding Todd Gurley, but when the last 2 years he's been one of the best running backs in reality and in fantasy. I had to take him there. Obviously, I know they're worrying about his workload toward the end of the season. Not so much maybe the beginning of the season, but we'll see how that goes. Even if they do have him on a supposed pitch count or whatever the case may be. But I had to pick Todd Gurley in that instance right there because when he's on the field and he runs and catches. He puts up big numbers every single week. So I had to even though my plan was to go in to do to go tight end with the first pick with Todd Gurley still being I'd really be stupid not to do that. And obviously I make a lot of stupid picks sometimes. But but Todd Gurley right there, I had to take him.
Well, it ended up working out for you as
Yeah.
Hopkins and Julio kind of finished off the first round. Odell, Tyreek Hill, and then Kelsey did fall to you at 15 or at the 15th overall spot, 3rd pick in the second round. We'll talk about how you feel about it a little bit later, but what did it feel like to you to draft Kelsey there?
It's definitely actually surprised that I thought he'd maybe go like maybe 2 picks before me. I really thought the way everybody had the way that offense goes, but having Kelsey right there, if he puts up.
But I'm asking you, how did you feel about it? Like did it feel like, man, I just don't. This doesn't feel comfortable to me. I should be taking a running back or a wide receiver here, or did you feel fine with it?
I was kind of in the middle. I felt like Travis Kelsey puts up the points that a wide receiver would put up, and I could pretty much fill out the rest of my roster that way. So to me, I really didn't feel like, oh crap, I needed to draft a wide receiver or I needed to draft another running back or something like that. So I wasn't.
So to my pick in the second round, going with the running back once again, I picked Joe Mixon. I'm not thrilled with it. He was the next running back I had on my list, but I almost kind of want to pick Nick Chubb or Dalvin Cook just because I feel like their upside is a lot higher. But I went with the guy in my list. He's supposed to be good, right? Hope so. And so for Mikey in that round, came up to him. You picked Zeke in the first round. Tell us who you picked in that second round and why you went with him.
I picked Nick Chubb in the second round.
So back-to-back running backs.
Yeah, and that was a case of letting the draft just kind of fall to me. The previous 10 picks, 8 of the guys that went were wide receivers. So what it did was it kind of left some value there at the running back position. So instead of going with what everybody else was doing and going receiver, that's when I kind of had to zag and say, I better take a running back that probably shouldn't be there.
So in that next, and you took him over, guys. So like before him, Schuster and Evans went. After Chubb was guys like Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper. And then it went back to Mikey again. And you went same strategy I did. You went with another running back, as you picked up Damian Williams. How do you feel about that?
I was ecstatic because if you listen to the previous podcast, I had Damian Williams in my top 5.
Mike said, don't let it happen. Don't let it happen.
Yeah, I just
And it happened here.
It was something where even though I had Williams ahead of Chubb in my rankings, I felt like the smart thing to do was to go reverse order because I felt like I could get both that way. Loved it.
Okay, and so for me, getting my third running back in a row with Aaron Jones, I might be a little higher on him than most. The other running backs kind of in that area were Derrick Henry, Marlon Mack, Kerryon Johnson, Marlon Mack, all guys I really like. So 3 straight running backs, definitely different. Made me a little nervous about what receivers are going to be there, but we'll get there when we get there. And then probably the first questionable pick in terms of just, I guess, value, but Todd Diamond in that third round decided to go with Robert Woods over guys like Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Green, these guys that I have higher than Robert Woods. Why'd you go with Robert Woods over like those Minnesota guys?
I just the high-powered offense I like a little bit better.
Why don't you just tell us the real answer?
Well, Robert Woods was on my team
There
last year.
you go. That's the answer we're looking for.
But I just like that high-powered offense a little bit better than I do in Minnesota. And like I said, Robert Woods proved himself. I mean, yes, injury. I know injuries changes the whole dynamic sometimes of a player because when the number one option of a player goes down and the second option has to come in and step up a little bit and puts up the points and puts that confidence, because that's the thing whether it's reality or fantasy, you want confidence, and Jared Goff was confident in Robert Woods. So bada bing, bada boom. Next pick.
Are you trying to tell me how I should dictate how this podcast is going? Maybe I want to ask you another question about Robert Woods.
Okay, ask me again about Robert Woods again.
I will ask you, why would you pick a guy that has 2 other top 20 wide receivers on his team when Minnesota has 2?
Because
more opportunities for those 2, who have put up better numbers than both of those, than the Rams wide receivers.
I agree, but but at least if both of them if Thielen and Diggs are having bad games, I would rather go to an option where there's 3 options and it seems like Jared Goff seems like to go to Robert Woods, a little bit more. Now, obviously, Cooper Kupp's coming back, and you still have Brandon Cooks, but I think Woods has definitely separated himself a little bit, being that one option there. Oh, what do we got here?
Mikey wrote something on a notebook. I can't see it, but he's showing Todd. And Todd's not.
Gary Kubiak is in Minnesota run offense. So it's
a good point.
So that's a good point. All right. Okay. All right.
We'll move on, but I will say that Thielen and Diggs both had better numbers than Robert Woods last year. So if you're just basing it on last year because he was on your team, may not be the best way. Keeping it going here, I guess we'll go with another quick pick. Well, we're not going to go through every single one of them, but for Todd, he picked Phillip Lindsay in the beginning of the 4th round over guys like Chris Carson, David Montgomery, James White, Mark Ingram. So just these are the guys that were drafted immediately after him. For Phillip Lindsay, obviously the big speculation, I think it's important to talk about it on this show, is that he's not even on the field right now. There's a lot of talk that Royce Freeman is moving up. They're talking about even split and the Broncos. I mean, it's early. There's obviously a lot can happen. But the theory right now is that they may split carries once they get to the regular season. Doesn't that make you nervous at all?
Not really, because the difference is Phillip Lindsay can catch the ball compared to Royce Freeman.
So what if they just put him as a 3rd down back?
They put that. They
Doesn't that make him worse, or at least less opportunities?
They do that. They do that with James White, and James White puts up just as good, just puts up decent numbers enough where you can feel comfortable starting him every week.
So you feel comfortable that Joe Flacco can be good as Tom Brady?
I'm not saying he's confident as Tom Brady, but to a point where you get the ball to your playmakers, and Philip Lindsay's a playmaker. So,
To make you nervous at all right now about Philip Lindsay, Mikey, just in general, in terms of fantasy?
Maybe a little. Not the injuries thing doesn't concern me at all, but I kind of want to see what their plan is as far as this ground game. If they plan to give Royce Freeman a little more work.
I think they might. I think that's something we'll have to keep an eye on in practice as we go along. Okay, so for me, going with those running backs in the first 3 rounds, stunned to see Adam Thielen in the 4th round. Thanks, Todd. Stunned to see him. I mean, it's Adam Thielen. As I look up at my list here, I have him 9th overall. So to be able to get a top 10 wide receiver in the 4th round has me thrilled just to have that. So to see that so far, to have 3 running backs and then a wide receiver turning out pretty good so far. Then we go back to Team Renault. Hey, the other Minnesota. We should be both thanking Todd. We should give him an extra cookie here. So for Mikey, that was your first wide receiver, is that right?
Yes.
And so do you feel good about Diggs as your number 1?
Yeah, he was my number 10 receiver overall. So to be able to snag him at the end of the 4th round, heck yeah, I was ecstatic.
I agree. I think we were talking about this during the draft, is that between us in the first 3 rounds, that's 6 running backs.
Yep.
And I think people freaked out.
We dictated what was going on.
And so that left some nice pickings. Pickings for us, for sure. All right, let's head into the 5th round here. And now this is where the storyline for what Mikey was trying to do eventually came through. He picked Andrew Luck in the 5th round. So let's talk about this. Mikey, notorious for picking quarterbacks late. How did you feel when picking a quarterback this early? It's your number 1 quarterback, so you at least feel somewhat good about that. How did it feel, and how did did you like the way your team finished out?
I love the way it finished out. Had I not been able to get the 4 guys that I got in rounds 1 through 4, like once I got those 4 guys, it's like, man, this almost feels like a luxury. It's like a luxury item. Like, man, I can do this and have my top quarterback overall. It's like, wow, this is awesome. And then when I saw the kind of guys that were going after, I took him. I was like, man. I was like, I got him. I see, Lamar Miller, Sammy Watkins, Tyler Lockett, Evan Ingram. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll take my Andrew Luck, and I'll be happy with it. No complaining from me.
So that was going to be my next question in terms of the guys that went after. Because, I mean, if you're waiting on quarterback, you're drafting for depth.
Yeah.
And so at this point of the draft, you have guys after like Tyler Boyd, DJ Moore, solid guys in terms of depth. Kenyon Drake was still out there, at least I'm a fan of. Calvin Ridley, kind of guys like that. It doesn't make you think twice in terms of trying to get depth and getting someone like Big Ben later?
Well, like I said, I felt like if there was one position where I thought there's more depth than I think people thought, it was receiver. So given where I was at, where I got 3 running backs already,
A little more comfortable.
Because I think I could get that receiver. If things went differently and say I had 2 receivers, 2 running backs, maybe not, because I'm more of a guy that with that flex position, I would rather have a running back in there than a receiver, but that's just me.
Okay. So Andrew Luck. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank this concept for you and how it turned out? Or give me an A, B, C, D, E, F, or A, B, yeah, give me a grade ranking.
I'll give it a solid B+.
B+.
Like, I didn't expect to like it, I'll say that, because I'm so adverse to doing something like that. Like, it's something I would never do. And
Does this make you think about it?
For real.
For the actual draft.
If people are being stupid and let me have those 4 guys in the first 4 rounds, then maybe.
Okay, I like it. Okay, so kind of finishing up, kind of how, and we'll go through each one's team too. For me, this is probably where it got a little questionable in terms of my second wide receiver. I ended up with Tyler Lockett. I don't hate Tyler Lockett. Do I want him as my number 2? Maybe more flex worthy than I probably prefer. I liked him over guys like Tyler Boyd, DJ Moore. Continue to go down the list. Calvin Ridley. So it's not terrible. I don't hate it. I love the running backs that I have. And I will say this: the thing I've learned through the mock drafts is that you better get running backs earlier than later. Because I've did a couple drafts where I went wide receivers in the first 2 rounds, and I was scrambling for running backs later. So I hate to tell you all this because I want to win this league, but I feel like that's the God honest truth in this draft is don't wait too long on running backs.
At least if you're gonna wait on running backs, at least get a top flight one at least first, so you feel comfortable. If you're gonna wait on a second one or a third, whatever the case may be, if that's the case. But at least if you don't at least get a top tier 1 or 2 running back, you're right, you're screwed.
Okay, so we're going to go through each one's team here, and you can mention something. I mean, Mikey kind of talked about it, but here's what Mikey ended up with. We talked about Andrew Luck. He picked him up in the 5th round. He had Elliott and Chubb, Diggs and Landry, Njoku, Damian Williams, and just a couple of guys on his. I mean, he really liked Latavius Murray. You drafted him pretty high. I have to check out which round. But Larry Fitzgerald, Sutton, the guy you like, Dion Lewis, who you stole from me or sniped from me. And so forth. So those are the kind of guys. Can you tell me just a little bit about Latavius Murray? Because I feel like you drafted him pretty high.
Yeah, I took him in round 7. It's just kind of as you mentioned, that was more dictated by what was going on in the draft. Like running backs were flying off the shelves like it was Black Friday. So, Murray's a guy that I think is going to have decent touchdown equity, and he's in a high-powered offense. He's going to be the guy that kind of fits into the Mark Ingram role in New Orleans. So I felt like having 3 running backs, I felt like he was a pretty decent 4th option running back to kind of snag there.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about your team before we move on?
Yeah, just surprised how it went. I mean, I got 2 guys that are basically right in the pine with Fitzgerald and Sutton that I have rated decently high.
It's a good team.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, if Landry can at least get to between 75 and 85 catches, I think it's a really good team. Todd, looking over your team after you drafted Kelsey in the 2nd round, how do you feel about your team?
I like it. I mean, the fact I got Aaron Rodgers. Never had Aaron Rodgers on my team before. The fact where I got it, the 5th round, obviously it's still pretty high. Obviously, not adding a lot of depth. I do like the fact I got. Telvin Coleman is a very interesting one. Just because, yes, he's going from Atlanta to San Francisco. Obviously, Atlanta, high-powered offense. And obviously, you're going to San Francisco where, he might be the main back. He might be the main back just because he has the more experience and he's more durable than most of the running backs on that San Francisco roster right now, running back roster right now. So, I was happy about that. Obviously, we won't talk about Robert Woods anymore because I think we've burned that.
We don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. We don't have to talk about that one. And Jerome Allison. Sorry, I say that 10 times. Interesting. Why the reason I picked him was what I was reading online is that the Packers want to play him in the slot, and we all know with slot wide receivers that comes with a lot of receptions. Whoa. Mikey was going to fall there. All right. Anyway, so definitely putting him, and he's attached to Aaron Rodgers. So that definitely helps. So if they're going to put him in the slot, that opens, that opens the door for a lot of receptions. And then probably the other one on my list probably would be take on Kareem Hunt. Now, obviously, I know, setting politics aside from it, I'm on previous podcasts what I've thought about his situation and everything like that. But hey, to get him in the late rounds, and he'll come back week 8 after the bye week. Definitely, and obviously, everybody's the Browns are apparently going to win the Super Bowl. Apparently, I don't know if you've all heard that, and so definitely he adds another dynamic to it. So if that helps me a late push for the playoffs, then I'll take it. So that's all I got to say about that.
What round did you take Geronimo Allison?
I took him in the
Looks like you took him in the 7th round. So I'm going to throw out a scenario because
Okay.
this goes back to drafting Travis Kelce in the 2nd round. So do you like, and I need to write this down here, would you prefer to have Kelce and Allison or Michael Thomas and Eric Ebron? Because I think this decides if it's something you want, if that's something you want to do, is drafting Kelce at the beginning of the 2nd round. Is it Kelce and Allison that you ended up drafting, or would you prefer Michael Thomas, who was the next wide receiver off the board, and then Eric Ebron? Now, you said Ebron was going to have 18 touchdowns.
I mean, obviously it's the
Unless you have Kelce having 25.
No, I have him 12. I'd probably go Michael Thomas and Eric Ebron.
So this might not be a strategy that you will go with in actuality when the draft actually happens.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be bad either way. If I had to go the Kelce Allison road, I'd be happy with that too. So, but the Michael Thomas that adds so much more other factors to my decision and what he can do. So, but again, it comes down to it. I mean, obviously, we talked about at the beginning of the podcast was Saints are going to have to pay him, make him the highest paid wide receiver. Just get it done already. He's like they showed a stat of all the Saints wide receivers. The next wide receiver next to Michael Thomas isn't even close to when it comes to receptions or yards.
That's currently on the team.
That's Traquan Smith.
That's Kamara. That should be.
Yeah,
that's the next one.
That's
Mikey. You want to say something? Go
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
it.
I just
Go
think
ahead.
where Todd messed up is I don't if you're going to take a tight end that early, I don't think you can take a quarterback early on top of it.
That's a good point.
It's either one or the other. I don't think you can do both because then it just really screws you.
Well, I mean, if you look, Allison as your number 2.
I don't think he's like every week starter.
I don't dislike Robert Woods, but as your number 1 might be tough. And you even said it when you were talking about Coleman. He might not even be the number 1 running back. And just have him as your flex, that's tough. I mean, I like Juwan Howard better than Coleman, but that's just me.
Because this is what happened. Like you took and Rodgers is a great quarterback, but you took him in the 5th round, and then in the 8th round you took Allison. Well, in that same 8th round, Deshaun Watson, who most people have as the top 5 guy, went in the 8th round. So you see what happened there,
And you could have had someone like Tyler Boyd or DJ Moore, which are probably better options as a number 2.
right?
makes sense. I mean, I'm not a big fan of DJ Moore, but I mean Boyd for sure. But yeah, no, I see. No, I no.
But that's why we do this.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
to see and to talk about it. That was the whole point of going in. It's not just let's just do a draft and see where we end up. It's going in with a plan to see if that plan is something that's feasible. Like Mikey, there could be a chance that if everything pans out the way he wants, he could draft a quarterback early. For me, Mikey's shaking his head no. For me, I'm going with the running backs and Connor and Mixon and Jones. Like, that's solid. I'll never have to really worry about running backs. If one gets hurt, I could just put one up into my starting spot and flex in someone else. Thielen, I love. We'll see. Lockett, I'm not super impressed, but I ended up going a lot of wide receivers. I got a lot of depth. And Ridley, Tate, Washington, even got Moncrief. Got Adrian Peterson that I always get. Ito Smith, so my depth after Jones is probably not the greatest, but I still like what I did. I don't know if I would go 3 running backs. I think I would go with Hopkins. Like drafting Connor over Hopkins made me a little nauseated because I really like what Hopkins brings to the table. And then I could have gotten Hopkins, and then I could have gotten, if Mixon was the same guy in the 2nd round, or if maybe one of them fell, and then going with Jones in the 3rd round, I'd probably be a little more happier with that. And then getting a better wide receiver as my number 2. Maybe even Diggs, depending on how the draft kind of shook out. But I don't think I would go running back, unless the right running back fell. If a Zeke or a Kamara fell at 7, I don't think that's going to happen. But if something happens where if Zeke is on the edge and maybe I take that chance at 7, but,
So would it depend on which running back, the first running back you take, would dictate if you go the next 2 picks running back?
I mean, you're saying so if I automatically go with a running back my first, what do I do in the second round? I think it depends. I mean, if Juju Smith-Schuster's there, it probably would take a wide receiver. Like I feel more comfortable going running back, wide receiver, but I also think that there's a lot of wide receiver depth. So if the right running back, I'd probably pick a better. If I have a running back and wide receiver that are the same in terms of point output, I'd probably take a running back because I feel like there's better wide receivers down the line.
So you just feel comfortable depending on whatever running back you took with your first pick.
But it'd have to be one of those top 4.
It'd have to be okay. That makes sense.
So if it's not a top 4, then it's probably going to be Adams. It's probably going to be Hopkins.
Okay.
But we'll see. I mean, things can change, but that's where I kind of see things. What do you think about where did I mess up, Mikey?
I don't think you did.
Oh, wow. That's the nicest thing Mikey's ever said to me.
I actually liked what you did, especially the receiver depth.
Yeah. Because I was just nervous about Lockett, so you just got to make sure you stay on top of it. And I don't know why people hate Adrian Peterson so much. But anything else you want to say? I mean, we're kind of over it. In terms of time, and it would have been cool to kind of go back some of the picks, the high picks. But, the whole idea was to go into the plan. I think it was a pretty cool plan. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like it. It definitely gave a different perspective. I think this is, something to do in the future to do this, because it just gives you an idea, just give you a different perspective instead of us just trying to do a mock draft what we think other people are going to do, in our actual league, just guessing what they're going to do. So this was definitely, I think this definitely helped.
And I recommend people doing mock drafts and trying things. Just don't do the same thing each time. Like, I'm trying to get the best players available. We all want to do that. But if you go in with an idea, then maybe, that's how I figured out, get running backs early, wide receivers. There's some available that you'll probably like. And maybe you don't like the same wide receivers I do. Maybe you think there's more running back depth than there is wide receiver depth. I don't think that's true. But maybe you think so. But if you do the mock drafts, it puts you in a better position. You're not freaking out on draft day about what do I do. You'll have an understanding. And that's why it's important to have tiers in your rankings of players. It's important to just go over them and not just do it once. I think a lot of people put the rankings together and then that's it. You got to constantly moving guys up and down. I mean, we talked about what's going on with Phillip Lindsay. Obviously, with all the holdouts, you just got to pay attention. But we're almost in August, and we already sent out an email about when draft day is going to be. So we're super excited about that. You guys excited?
Heck yeah, I'm ready. Draft day is it's like soccer Super Bowl. It's a Super Bowl. It's awesome.
This is the last Thursday without football for a while.
There you go. Next week, Broncos Hall of Fame game. So definitely tune into that. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And next episode, I don't know what we're going to do. We've talked about doing bold predictions. We talked about doing our own mock drafts. You'll just have to wait and see.
Hall of Fame weekend as well, too.
Yeah.
So
a lot of fun going on. So for Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next time on the MHA podcast.